Hey, we're back, you guys. This is Thursday night, 8 o'clock Eastern. I am broadcasting from the road tonight, you guys. I'm about an hour from home, so Brad is running the board. So if anything goes wrong, we got to attack Brad for it. How about that?
All right.
All right. So don't shoot the messengers. We're shooting from the hip. He's always great on the board. So glad to have you guys out tonight. I know that there's more that'll be joining us. That's how our calls go. Tonight we wanted to talk about our fundraiser first, and then we have traffic conversation coming up. And we got some really good stuff, things that win just about every single time, if not 100%. I bet he tells us it's 100%. So let's start off with the fundraiser that we've been talking about. Who needs to make some extra money? Who's whispering to us? Brad, I don't know who's whispering, but we got a little whisper in the background, a little bit there.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. Yeah, I'll mute them. Yep.
Sounds good. Thanks. All right. So tonight we've got John Casera out in Riverside, California, one of my favorite places, and we've got Kelby on, who is on board with us, and we may have Keith on, and hopefully Tom is going to be joining us as well. We got quite a few people that want to discuss this, and it's an amazing opportunity, you guys. Anyone who needs to raise money for anything, this is the fundraiser on steroids. We've all heard of Indiegogo. We've heard of CrowdRiser, all kinds of fundraisers out there. This is our third time talking about this, and now we actually have some experience at it personally, myself and Kelby and a few others that are on the call. We got started, and we kind of want to talk a little bit about what's happened for us in the short amount of time that we did get started. But if you've ever needed to raise money for anything, a lot of people will go to these other avenues, CrowdRiser, Indiegogo, et cetera, and most of the time, most of the fundraisers that are out there, 95% of the time, 90 to 95% of the time, they never get eyes on their fundraiser. And we can speak from experience here at 42 Action because we've had a fundraiser going on right on the home page for several months now, and it's been slow going because a lot of eyes don't get to it. We don't get outsiders that get to it. And, we're not celebrities here. So we're not in the mainstream that we can use television and other avenues to draw attention to the fundraiser. And the whole purpose for it with 42 Action was to be able to afford an assistant so that we could really streamline what's going on and be able to effectively get to all of the questions, all of the people that need help. And so I bit the bullet and went ahead and hired Eileen, our assistant, anyway, even though the fundraiser didn't quite cut what we needed. This fundraiser is completely different. This is where your eyes are forced to look at your fundraiser. And, we've all heard of people that maybe they went into the hospital, they had cancer, they had a heart attack, and they had no way to pay the medical bills, or, they're doing something great. They want to take a trip around the world. They're a high school or college student, and they all have to do a fundraiser. Girl Scouts do fundraisers, Boy Scouts, any kind of a sport team, they all do fundraisers. This is no different than that. One difference between one of like Indiegogo and this, no eyes are going to be on your project. There's companies out there that prey on people, and I actually bid into that, where you spend another $200 or $300 to get them to do search engine optimization to get eyes on your project. Those don't work either. So what I found today, especially, I got a phone call from a gentleman, and he said, "Thank you, Randy. And thank you to Kelby for donating to my fundraiser." I said, can you tell me how much we donated to your fundraiser? Because I've been in the car, so I haven't really seen it. And he told me that he got several donations today that equated to a little over $150. I said, that's phenomenal. And I didn't even know about it. I had taken this fundraiser, this program that we're going to talk to you about tonight, and we put it on an autopilot. And that autopilot goes ahead and finds fundraisers that are beside you and above you and draws attention to them, and what you have in your account will actually donate towards that. So it's kind of a neat program. So we have Keith on the line. Keith, are you with us? Okay, I don't hear Keith, but we have Kelby on the line with us. I want him to talk briefly, and then we also have Mr. Casera out there in Riverside, so I want to hear from him as well. In fact, let's hear from you out in Riverside first, if we can.
Okay, sure. Glad to talk to you about it.
Great, thank you.
I've been in the financial planning business since 1973. And I've done all these conventional plans for people where we're always talking about 30 years. Someday we're going to retire. We're going to create sinking funds. We're going to set up buy-sell agreements. And all of that went by the wayside in 2008 because everybody lost a ton of money. And I had to close my business, and I was actually leveraging real estate appreciation into life insurance contracts. And everybody who did that came out fine because they had all that cash sitting in those life insurance policies. But when you think about it, all of the plans that I put together for retirement planning and stuff really evaporated because the government debased the currency. So the value that we were anticipating when I started them back in the 70s when IRAs came out, that was after 1974, the ERISA, Employee Retirement Income Security Act, funny name, literally locked up people's funds and then proceeded to destroy the currency and the purchasing power. So everything we had worked for, it just went down the tubes. And I started looking for something to do and ways to fund my own things because I had a lot of demand for cash and I wasn't raising any money. And it was pretty tough there for a few years. And then I came across the Carrot Bar system and then also came across the a crowdfunding program. The crowdfunding program is a voluntary way, tax-free, to raise all the money you need for whatever legal project that you require. And I think it works for two reasons. One is that you're not focusing as much on your project. You're trying to help others raise money for their projects. So the focus is on helping others. That's number one. Number two is because it's a shared platform, everybody gets funded. As long as you participate and you do the step-ups and you go out and refer some other people in and you get some of the direct donations to yourself and you donate some of that money into the step-up process, once you've got that started, it will continue on its own. And there's no reason that you can't continue to help other people and refer other people to the program, and the thing just grows organically. And it automatically will create a funding vehicle that can produce an almost unlimited amount of money for whatever that person needs. And the company doesn't take any piece of it. In fact, the whole company itself is one big crowdfunding program that operates on the same principle. That's the reason they don't have to take any of our money and they don't have to charge us any fees. So I now get funding for my project, and I'm the one that's concerned about what I want to do. I want to create my school. I want to fight the fraud. I want to do whatever I need to do. If I have to travel around the country and I have to go to conference after conference to learn new techniques, if I have to go to law schools and take courses in law schools, and at the same time I have to take care of my family and I have to have a place to set up my school, I don't have to worry about going out there knocking on doors trying to get people to donate to my project. It's automatically happening because I'm showing others how to help themselves with their project, and in the process, I'm getting funded all the way through. So now I'm looking at financial planning sides of this thing. Everything is going to hell in a handbasket in the country. I mean, there's 93 million people that are out of work now. More are coming out. They're bringing more people in. They're making Americans train their replacements and putting them out of work. And we're going to have some way to create our own economy. And this is the only way to do that that's very efficient, can happen very quickly, and puts everybody in control. So I think I found the best financial planning product that there ever was for today. There's nothing better. Why try to create a retirement plan for somebody who needs money right now? He's already retired. We can do that with this. Does somebody need to wait 30 years? No. So what happens is that people now are mentally freed. They begin to see possibilities that they never saw before. The dreaming wakes up in them. In other words, people get so into these ruts of the daily grind that they lose the ability to dream and how to change their life and how to make things better and how to help others. Because the best way to get out of your funk, I found several times, is to go out and try to help somebody else. Not worry about yourself. Go help somebody else who has a problem. And all of a sudden, your problems begin to evaporate, and you also begin to see other possibilities and things that you might want to do. How are you going to get the money to do them? Through this program called crowdfunding. I'm excited with it. I'm happy with it, and it's just starting. I was doing some Google trending on terms, looking at crowdfunding terms, looking at WeShare terms, others. Crowdfunding is starting to show up in the trends, but believe me, our program is just barely making a blip. It is so wide open, it is worldwide, and everybody can benefit from this program. So I don't think that there's a better thing we can do. I was talking to students today over at Starbucks, because one of my pets is to help people get college without debt. And all of these people are taking loans, and they're all having to fill out FAFSA forms and tax forms, and they got penalties of perjury on this and penalties of perjury on that, and they put people into debt. All that can go bye-bye. And we have the greatest place to work because it's $1.3 trillion in student loans right now. It's massive. It's unbelievable how large that is. We can wipe that out for people and put people back in control of their lives, and they don't have to be debt slaves or wage slaves anymore. It's just kind of cool. Let's say a guy graduates and he's in communications, and he goes to a communications company or something, and he says, hey, listen, you know what, I'd like to work for your company. How about you give me an unpaid internship for a year, and I'll try you out and you try me out, and at the end of the year I'll let you know if I want to stay. That's totally different than going out and saying, oh, please give me a job, and you can't get a job. And then what that does is ruin your credit. Now you can't buy a new car. Now you can't get a nice place to live. Now you can't have a family because you can't get any money. We totally can take control of our life and our freedom back doing this. Anyway, that's my view of it.
All right, thank you. This is a good spot to bring Kelby in. Kelby, talk about what's happened since you and I decided to get started with this, what you've witnessed.
Well, first, it was a concept that I didn't really believe in. And Randy gave me one of those calls where you're going to do this, and we're going to partner up, and we're going to help a lot of people. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And I looked into it. I saw one video, and the principle behind the video was the reverse of everything I had ever heard of before, which this gentleman from Riverside, who was very well stated. And that principle is putting others before yourself, which is, it's a humility thing. It's, for me, it's very honorable. And it made sense. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Because when I saw this video, and I got my head wrapped around what one, I don't even like calling it a leg because it makes you think you're talking about a multi-level thing, and that's not what this is. But because I don't really have another term for it, if somebody wants to help me with maybe another term, that's fine. But this video shows what it could look like from a donation standpoint by doing this, finding the principle of two people and donating to the people above you and finding two people to donate to you and what that looks like over the period of 7 legs. And I went, oh my gosh, this is, I don't think it's ever been thought of before. And it's not tricky. It's not like a weird thing. It's literally probably one of the most genius things I've ever seen. And it's going to really help a lot of people. And I mean a lot of people. So I really can't follow up that guy, Randy. I'll tell you just to finish off. You know, the sites are going through some upgrades today, and but in the 2 days they opened the payment gateway, we brought on a ton of people that get it. Because for me, I walk up to somebody and I say, you're going to donate to me $200, and you're going to find 2 people to donate to your cause, whatever cause you may have. It could be your home. It could be your late payments. It could be the need for counsel. It could be anything. And what's going to end up happening is we're going to help get that system to duplicate itself. And since we started doing that, people are getting it, and they don't have any issues. I had a guy call me today. This guy's he's an investigator, and he does due diligence. And he said, Kelby, I need to sign up now, but I'm on the road, and I cannot wait. Can you please take my credit card? I'm like, well, normally this is something you got to do. Can I walk you through it online? He said, sure. So we took care of it for him. And in a nutshell, we ended up bringing on 14, 15 people in one day. And I don't know what the normal is, and I don't think we're even pushing this hard at all, to be frank with you. I had a root canal about 6 hours ago, and I was tied up for 2 hours, and literally I was texting everybody that I knew while I was having a root canal. And because I was that excited. When I got done, I had started blitzing the phone calls. And I think this is going to change a lot of lives, Randy. I really do. I think this is the ticket to help our country. And it sounds foolish, sounds silly, sounds, wishful thinking. Yeah, okay, but I don't know of anything else that has what this company is doing. And on its principal basis alone, I'm all in. I can't wait to help every member of his advocates through this, and every friend and every family member. So I'm excited. Ready to.
Outstanding. Is Tom on the line by chance?
Hey, listen, this is John again. Can I make a comment there? What we call, it's not a leg, it's a donation group. It's called a donation group. And let me point to one spot in your back office. When you go back there and the menu shows up, look at the second item. I think it's called promotional rules. And when that's a 2-page document, and you print it out. It tells you what you can do and what you can't do. But the most important thing is it tells you what to say. So because this is not a business and it's not a taxable entity, we want to use terms that are not associated with those kinds of things. And so instead of things like recruits and investments and downlines and uplines and frontlines and all that stuff, it gives you the language that's, instead of those words, it gives you the language to use for those situations. And it's all there written down for everybody, and nobody has to guess.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, it does.
I went on a friend of mine, his website. He had a heart attack about 1.5 years ago and did not have any health insurance. We all know people like that. Some of you on the call may be in the same boat. And what I noticed is he was promoting and receiving nothing in return for his own issues, but he was promoting all of these people that had health fundraisers. And all I kept thinking is they're on one of these other sites. Someone, please mute your lines if you have background noise, please. He was on all of these other sites.
Drop me off? Take me? Drop me off.
Brad.
Come back and get me.
Sorry about that. I did.
That's okay. Thank you. He was promoting all of these other sites, and I clicked on some of their fundraisers, and there was like $0, $25, very small amounts for their fundraisers, and I felt bad for them because it's very difficult to get eyes on your projects. And so, that's just, John, if you want to touch on that real quick, if you're still in there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Touch on how this forces people to look at other people's fundraisers.
Well, let's say, for example, that you go to GoFundMe.com and you go over there and look at situations. Everybody that's there is in competition with everybody else that's fundraising, and in competition with everybody else and all the other companies that are doing fundraising. In our program, it's not that way at all. We're cooperating. We're a group of project managers all cooperating with one another and sharing donations so that everybody gets funded. In the same process of me helping somebody else come on board, I'm not bringing in a competitor. I'm bringing in a friend that I'm going to help. And in turn, they're going to help me automatically because of the way the system's designed. And it's very important to understand that these donations do not go through the company. When that donation is made, it's automatically sent directly to the individuals. So there's no entity that's in the way or between us and the people that are making the donations. I think that's a very important point here. Does that answer the question?
It does. Now, I got a phone call from a gentleman today, and he said, I'm very interested in the fundraiser, and I know he's on this call tonight listening. And he said, I'm looking for this certain dollar amount. So we'll just say it's $5,000 for a certain fundraiser. How would I fit in? Can you just do a brief summary of step 1, step 2, step 3 of how somebody who's looking to raise $5,000 for their fundraiser, what's their next step?
Well, I'm glad you asked the question because they're on the Master Mentor Network, mastermentornetwork.com. That is a group of coaches and other individuals that have been doing this for a while who are teaching everybody else how to do this and how to deal with it. And on that site, which is free to everybody that's participating in the program, there is a document in there. It's $10,000 in 30 days. And it walks you through the whole process. And it explains the donation distribution formula and how it works. So what I would do is simply have them go over there and download that document. It's a PDF file. I think it's maybe 5 pages or 6 pages long. And it walks you through exactly how to do that.
Okay, perfect. Now, our website for anybody who wants to get started tonight is startfundraiser.com. And they were doing updates earlier on the site, so I'm not sure if you can actually get to it right this moment. Maybe somebody can check that for me. Startfundraiser.com. You'll be working with Kelby and I exclusively, along with some other leaders in this, and, like John as well, and some of the people that were on Kelby's call last night and on our call last week. We are going to be doing some automated webinars to walk you guys through some of this training. We're going to be doing 3 ways. We have Eileen, who's our assistant. She'll set up phone calls. Anybody who is started tonight, we are going to be talking tomorrow and walk through the back office with one of the leaders in the company, and they're going to totally train on how to go from A to Z in the back office of this, so you're going to know exactly what you're doing tomorrow. You're going to know exactly what you're doing tomorrow. So I just want to make sure that you guys have a sense of urgency. If you're looking to raise money, you're looking to do a fundraiser, this is the thing to look at. Kelby, do you know if Tom got on tonight?
I gave him the phone numbers. Tom, you on yet?
Listen, this is John again. There's one thing I've got to stress, is that when people come on, they need to go and start referring other people to the donation group and get that step-up process going. I find that the thing that slows most people down is they don't actually start bringing other people in. They take a lot of time to look into a lot of different details. This is designed to be so simple that a person who is absolutely burdened, all they have to do is refer the people to the program, help them get signed up, and start up that process. And they don't really have to think about much else, just helping other people tell them that they can get the money that they need. And it's as simple as asking a question. Do you know anybody who needs any money for any kind of a program? Maybe they've got bills to pay. Maybe they need a new car. Maybe they need tires for the car. Maybe they got medical bills. Maybe they got student loans that are a problem. Maybe they're going into foreclosure. There are so many markets out there that this can actually help people. It's important to let them know that they can do all of that. And they've got to get started with the step-up process. That's the one thing that slows this whole thing down, is they come on and they don't get funded right away. Does that make sense?
And that's something that, yes, it does. And if somebody gets started from this call tonight, if you get started at our website tonight or in the morning, you'll be able to be on our training call tomorrow, and we will walk you through that whole step-up process so that you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing. Dave Kofeld, are you on the line?
I am.
Okay. Did you want to take a couple minutes, share anything?
Well, when I talk about the program,
your phone is sketchy. Try to get in a good spot.
Is this better? Can you hear me?
Yes, now we got you.
Okay. Myself, having over 20 years in the financial industries business with retirement planning, funding different projects. Retirement planning, as an earlier gentleman said, we're all looking for that retirement goal of 20, 30 years, actually 30, 40 years down the line. And when it's pulled out under the rug from us, what do we do next? And what typically happens with most people when they have a emergency in their lives, no matter what it is, could be a legal issue, could be a medical issue, could be helping a family member, it could be a number of things going on in their lives that they turn around and get tapped out from their retirement fund. They no longer have a retirement fund. And with all the vehicles that I've ever seen in my life, I've never seen a vehicle as such that can really empower yourselves as long as you're in a position to want to empower others to share what you're able to do to help loved ones, family members, those you care about, and even promoting it to your colleagues on how you can help them fulfill their dreams. You at the same time able to fulfill your dreams in a very short period of time, not no 30 or 40 years. This could happen in 3 months, it can happen in 6 months. If you have a vision, if you have a passion, if you can see through the forest to see the sky is really blue, and there's opportunity for you to help others, you just live the wildest dream you could ever live, just because of the financial plight, the financial burden we are all in, every one of us, no matter what we do. We go to work every day because we have to, and to be able to put yourself in a position to help others where you don't have to look at work forever and ever. You can look at enjoying your life and helping others forever and ever. That's what life's supposed to be about.
Awesome. Now, earlier, John gave out a website, and I want to address that. That website doesn't do you a bit of good if you don't get started at startfundraiser.com and .org. Actually, .org is another one, startfundraiser.org tonight. Do not go to that other website and hit their Get Started Now button. It will not do you any good. You have to get started at startfundraiser.com or startfundraiser.org tonight.
Let me second that. The other website there is nobody signs up for anything over there. It's paperwork and support information, and you need to know how to use it. I mean, it doesn't mean anything to you unless you get in the program and you start looking at how the thing works, and then you can go there to get information and support. But that's all that is. You
Randy?
have to get signed up.
I apologize, Randy.
Yes.
I want to add one more thing, one more key component here. Myself, I worked in marketing, online marketing for a national company. It's pertaining to homeowners and contractors. That's what I've been doing for several years. And the power of this program is because of the power of the Internet and technology. That's the driving force behind this crowdfunding, because when you can reach others and they can reach others through their families, friends worldwide, and it can come back to you from people you don't even know. That's the power of social networking, the power of the Internet, and power of real results. So I just wanted to make sure people understand what technology is the driving force.
Awesome. All right. Anybody have any questions? Let's open it up to Q&A right now. And Brad, you might want to unmute some of those lines. I know there was a few.
Yeah. Okay.
And for those that are listening, please mute your lines if you don't have questions. Brad's going to come through right now and unmute. But our line stays open. We're one of the only calls out there where we keep an open line so you can get directly to the speakers. And I know that there's quite a few of you that are here tonight because you're interested. The tagline on the email was, if you want to make some money, this is one way to get attention to your own fundraiser. And if you think, oh, I don't have a fundraiser, look at your life, look at your finances, look at your situation. Maybe you do. All right, we'll take a question. Anybody have one? Any comments?
I'll start out, Randy.
Yes.
You said several times if you want to make some money. Do people get it all cynical about this? The same people are on there just to make money, and it's supposed to be sort of a goodwill, charity-oriented thing, and not really a money maker, or am I missing something with that?
Okay, say that. I'm on the road, so I had a hard time hearing it. Kelby, did you hear it?
No, I couldn't hear.
This
what
is
he was
John.
saying.
I got it. I know what he's
Go
saying.
ahead.
Thank you.
It is not a make money kind of thing, and really that's not what we're trying to do here, because what we're doing is to get money donated to us to help us with the needs that we have. So that's really the approach that you want to talk about. Again, you want to go back in the back office there and go to the spot on the back office that gives you the words and terms that you want to use associated with this thing. And when people are first starting, it's sometimes a little difficult because they're not used to this kind of a concept of being given something as opposed to earning something. So you're not making or anything. All you're doing is joining a community that's going to help you get funding for the things that you need for your life and whatever your dreams are.
Excellent. Thank you. Oh, you better mute that line. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you for that, Brett. Thank you, John, for addressing it.
Just one quick note, Randy.
Yes.
Just because we're doing updates on the site, we're actually making a redirect for people if they go to startfundraiser.org right now and or startfundraiser.com. The site is going to do a redirect for them to be able to get the phone number to your assistant to make a free consultation call to explain it all the way through for them so you can get their mind wrapped around it. And but that is, in fact, up at this point. So startfundraiser.org will give you the toll-free number and extension of it might take 10, 15 minutes to resolve, but it'll give you everything that you guys need in order to make a consultation call. And we'd be more than happy to talk to you about what's going on in the back and how it's working for everybody.
All right, excellent. Okay.
Randy, can I add one more thing?
Sure, go ahead. Is that Dave?
Yes, it is. I think what's very important is to have your own, everyone that gets involved in this program will have their own website to promote the concept of giving and receiving. And it is self-funding where when people donate to the project, there's an option to automatically step up to share those donations with the floors above you. Therefore, you'll be able to receive funds from floors under you, and it's self-funding, I guess is the way I want to say it, and it's done automatically. There's not much anyone has to do other than share it with others. And by having a call like this, where people can bring their loved ones and family and colleagues into learning more about it, you have all the support out there that you give everyone, Randy, and that's what's so unique about this We Share crowdfunding program is the support everyone would have just in your position alone, yours and Kelby's, to be able to want to help these folks out where they're blind and can't see yet. We can hold their hand and show them where they can see.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a good point because one thing that Kelby and I do is literally all day long, and today was no different. We literally are on the phone all day long with people in regards to either this fundraiser or law stuff. We're on foreclosure calls. We're on going into the private calls. We are on calls all day long. Literally, we'll hang up with each other because, he's going to go take a nap, like 15-minute cat nap. That's all we get. We are working hard for our people, and we're working hard for our team. We're trying our best to help people build true fundraisers, true organizations, and we've brought on some incredible people. And, there's this huge future in this, you guys. When I showed this to Kelby, I said to him, when I really got my brain wrapped around it, I said, this truly could be one of the biggest things that we've ever touched to help people. So, make the decision, make the move, go to the website, startfundraiser.org, and get in touch with us. We will call you tomorrow. We do have a training tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and that is to go through the back end of this and show people how it works, but you got to be started to be on that call. So make sure you get started tonight or tomorrow. We will get in touch with you before 12 o'clock, before that starts. So I think, unless
Randy,
anybody has any parting comments. Yes, go ahead.
I can give you a couple ideas on how to start building your donation group if people need to want to learn how to do some of that.
Sure.
Okay.
As long as we're not throwing out any websites or phone numbers, I'm good with it.
No, this is fine. One of my favorite places to go is with Craigslist. And you can run ads on Craigslist, and that will actually bring some people to you to talk to you about joining the project. But another area it goes in the resume section. And when you go into the resume section, you search for, there's all these people are in there wanting jobs. So I put in a search term up there at top called anything. So I'm finding people who are willing to do anything to raise money because they're desperate. They need a job, and they need it now. Now, this thing won't stop their short-term need. I can't give them, donations and things coming in immediately the following day unless they're up to speed and they've already signed up to the program. But you can certainly approach them and see if they'd be interested in talking about a way that they'd be able to generate funds and get out of their problem. And it's just as simple as sending them a message asking them if they'd like to talk about it. You can also put other search terms in there. I put in a search term called college, and then there are all these people that are asking for people to help them get a job so they can go to college. Well, college without debt's a big deal. And, one of the things that I like about approaching college students, I like to use LinkedIn for that. Because when you go on to LinkedIn, there's all these college students that want to connect with other people for future jobs, and they also want to connect with their social groups on the campus. There's fraternities on there, sororities on there. There's different groups, and they're always trying to raise money for different things. And you can actually get appointments to go over there and make presentation to these people as a whole. And the thing I like about the college students, too, is they're all socially networked. They're all tied into Facebook. They've all got Twitter accounts. They know how to use a computer. You don't have to train them how to do that. And so you go in and you start talking to a few of these people, and you don't need that many people on a campus, Riverside City College up here has got 25,000 students. University of California, Riverside's got another 6,000 to 10,000. You got University of Redlands. You got Cal State Fullerton. You got Cal State San Bernardino. You got the Laverne colleges. You got Cal State Pomona. I mean, there's no end to the availability of talking to students. That's really a key point because those students are the ones that are going to come out and be looking for jobs and can't find them. And they need to know that they've got a future regardless of that, so they can pursue their dream of education, getting that education, getting it paid for, and leave the school not having to worry about getting a job right away. And that's going to open up all kinds of innovation and ideas and dream because they'll have funding. They'll have funding that they don't have to worry about. And they'll have time to build that donation group into a sizable amount of funds because they can refer one another and help each other get all the funding that they need, and they've got everybody they need right on campus. I mean, you walk out on a campus and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people right there just in the common area that you can talk to. There are people hanging around Starbucks. They're hanging around restaurants. They're hanging around coffee places. You can go talk to them about this stuff. They're very easy to get a hold of. And then you've got a lot of people that I find, I like to find communications majors on LinkedIn. And I just connect with them. And then I just start bringing up the idea that there are ways to get funding for their projects or they know how to communicate. That's their job. They're in advertising. They're in movies. They're in theater. They're in all these things. Those people are going to be in business in the future. How great it would be for them to go and actually set up a project to fund all of their own companies. So no longer are we employees. We're all entrepreneurs now. And we all did it without government help. We didn't need to get a loan. We didn't need to pay anything back. We didn't need to file applications for a government grant, which always puts all kinds of strings on us. It's a way to get true freedom. And let the government go do what it does best, which is, build roads and tear down dams and create problems. And then we'll just go off and build our futures. Worldwide. We can do this anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter where we go.
Sounds great. Yeah, if you were ever wanting to leave the country, you finally have an internet business that you can do. So,
yeah, we're in 170 countries right now.
Very good. Okay, well then I think we can end on that. That is a great note to end on. And I know Kelby's going to be leaving us. He's got to head over to his Republic Hall. We're going to talk about a few other things, and then on the top of the hour, we have got David is going to be coming back. He was here last week, if you guys remember him. He talked about a lot of IRS stuff and some court things and paperwork and his website, which has about 7 hours of training on it. So we'll get into that here in just a few minutes. Thank you, John. Thank you, Dave, on that subject. Thank you, Kelby, if you're still there, and anybody else who jumped in there, Brad, with your question. Okay, so who got arrested in the last week? Anybody? I always end the calls with don't get arrested. Everybody stayed pretty safe, or what?
Well, you've been on the road driving across the country. You have any close calls yourself?
Cops everywhere. That's all I can say. They were out in full force looking for customers. So, yeah, I've had a very busy week, an unexpected trip that came up, and I wasn't even sure if I would be able to make this call tonight, but I really didn't want to miss getting it out about the fundraiser. I wanted to take that opportunity, and I was so glad that you could run the board. So super appreciative of that. No, just saw a few accidents. I felt bad for a lot of the people out there that fell victim to the whole speed trap stuff, and probably a lot of worthless minor infractions. Is David actually on right now? He may not be until the top of the hour. We also had Dave in the Thumb. He wanted to discuss the Pope. If Dr. Hatwan is still on. Dave in the Thumb, do you want to bring up what you were talking about earlier? He may be muted, Brad. It would be like a 810 phone number somewhere up in Michigan. Not sure. Okay. Does anybody want to talk about any other topics besides that? Gloria, if you're on there, I know you're sending some emails out about the Jade Helm if you guys want to talk about it. We got 20 minutes open line, you guys. So
okay.
Wants to talk about what? Go for it.
This is Ron, and I'm just wondering if the qualifications of the people that have been putting on the call, let alone the people that are listening, understand and have been educated in the matter to, quote, own nothing but control everything, so we the people can truly bring back the respect and quality across the board throughout our country, starting at the local levels by we the people uniting privately versus publicly, and both nationally as well as internationally, using the correct business and trust structures of private nature so that we the people truly can change any aspect in all quality of life in any manner of people's lives that have been intentionally denied public knowledge of and public dissemination of, because it'd be defined as a, quote, conflict of interest and in violations of universal commercial code, because it would be defined as interfering with commerce if it were to go, quote, public.
Well, we all definitely understand the difference between public versus private on this call. Is there any particular website that you're referring to?
Well, you have one I will mention that that's related to tax law, and that would be the law that never was.com. That's been out since 1984. And a second one is a organization in which I had to leave both the United States of America as well as any part of the United Nation countries to have been privately educated in because of the individuals that spoke there. One individual, I will not name on the phone, but I will say this much, was a, quote, congressperson, and still is to this day. And because of the information of what this congressperson spoke, this congressperson who first entered the stage making this statement, quote, you're probably all wondering it is why that I am meeting you here in private sovereign international territory outside the jurisdictions of the United States as well as outside the jurisdictions of the United Nations. So I'd like to put everybody at ease first and inform them why before I begin to speak to you about what it is I'm about to share. And he continues with the reason why he is meeting us there is because of the current public privileged position that he maintains as congressperson within the states, one of the 50 states. He would, if he were to speak about the issues and topics in detail that he was going to speak to us about in sovereign territory, inside any of the jurisdictions of the United States and or United Nations, he would be committing a felony in violations of said oath and affirmations of office, which would be cause for automatic dismissal from any public office throughout the entire country in Washington, D.C. and the United Nations, as well as a felony record and loss of any public benefits that he would have accrued up to that point in date and time and location. So that's why he was making sure that he met us in sovereign territory so he could provide full disclosure to any and all individuals who chose to take it upon themselves to get themselves privately educated. So that was just one person. But the bottom line is there are professionals throughout the world, not just country, but there's one that I know for sure in this country that will privately work with us privately as a team to set up the appropriate business/trust structures correctly so that we the people can privately own nothing but control everything, just like our own government officials and government offices at any federal, state, county, or city level all do. If you do any research, you will find that there are no federal, state, county, or city governmental offices of any kind that own anything. They're not allowed to. We're born into this world with a bare butt. We leave this world with a bare butt. What we do in the middle is what's important. And unfortunately, we've all been, of course, dumbed down educationally because that's how they maintain control of the masses, through the, quote, psychological warfare that they're forcing upon the people when the people don't know what their true rights are to begin with across the board. And just like why still to this day do the Amish and the Indians still reside in sovereign territory outside of the 50 public United States of America? Because they chose not to contract. They chose to stay out of their realm and their jurisdiction.
Now, having said that, are you still able to, make a living, make income outside their jurisdiction, or how wrapped up are you? No.
Well, what I'm looking for first, because of what I had to do for myself, I will tell you in a nutshell. My first pro se lawsuit was filed on my 18th birthday. And I am very proud to say that the one most important thing that I'm very proud to say is I did not write the lawsuit. How did I get this accomplished? I learned how to use my private constitutional rights under the age of 18. I had to call over 100 law firms, and I verbatimly told them full disclosure truth on the phone, what my age was, 17 and a half, and informed them of what I needed, which was my, quote, original medical records from a very young age until the date of my 18th birthday, because a hospital system was denying me to provide to me my, quote, original medical records from a very young age until the date of my 18th birthday, as well as up to that point that I was speaking to each law firm. And the only person I would speak to at each law firm was the CEO. I would not speak to any other human being. And I informed them point blank that I have yet to find in any federal or state constitution that there is a specified age limit in any federal or state constitutions of an individual's private right to contract with anyone. So that CEO and each CEO I spoke to would agree to meet with me privately under the de facto statutory commercial age limit of 18. I will bring a friend with me as a witness, and we will both bring some form of legitimate identification that I will be happy to place on the desk of the individual CEO that I will meet with, and follow through with the discussions in which I need to have completed in a private manner in that private office. It took me over 100 law firms before I could find a CEO that had the nerve and willing enough to meet with me. But why? The most important thing I told every CEO on the phone was this: if you agree to meet with me, what I will do is I will also request that you and whoever you so choose to work with prepare what is known as a non-disclosure, non-circumvent document that I will be more than happy to sign, and my friend will be more than happy to sign on the date of my 18th birthday, and have all of the documents dated for the date of my 18th birthday for two reasons. One, so we can come to your office and sign the documentation of non-disclosure. Two, so I can hand to you a money order dated for the date of my 18th birthday directly from the bank for the full amount that you'll verbally tell me today only how much you'll charge. That way there's no paper trail of this communication ever taking place in any public setting in any way. And on the date of my 18th birthday, I will also have time to receive that lawsuit and go directly to the correct courts of record within the state that we currently reside in and file that correct pro se lawsuit and guarantee without a doubt that I'll have my records within 48 hours of me filing that lawsuit on the date of my 18th birthday. That attorney was shaking his head. He couldn't believe what I taught myself up to that point at that young of an age. But when you're punched in the face, so literally, it's such a difficult manner because of the deceit and fraud that's even going on in our society, in our medical system. Our medical system and our government, who issues licenses to practice, are the ones controlling the said licensed practitioners and what they can and cannot even tell any individual, regardless of whether or not it will or will not harm that individual. It doesn't matter. The point is the doctors are so afraid of losing their license to practice if they speak the truth to the individual patient because of the contractual binding contracts that the AMA has with the Food and Drug Administration cartel, which in turn has contracts with your federal district of corruption that's passed down via the state level. And the people have to realize that we are much more important in many manners of life, not just one, and more importantly have to learn how to come back together privately to unite in a private fashion that will change not just our own lives, but many people's lives throughout the entire country. But if we aren't properly structured to, quote, own nothing but control everything without anything be attached to us, but yet we control what we do because of how the structures are created, then and only then can things truly change for us as well. Go ahead.
Who's a good candidate, or who's a good fit for these structures that you're talking about?
Well, first of all, a person who's willing to lead and not follow. That would be the first thing I would say. Second of all, a person or persons who also understand the importance of unity. Because if you look at any successful business that's in this country, or any other country for that matter, you will never see a one-person know-it-all. It doesn't exist. The people have to realize the importance of combining each person's diverse, blessed intelligence that each one of us have. We all have our own gifts. We all have our own abilities. But if we don't learn to bring it together as a team, the amount of positive things that can be accomplished as a team stands for through everyone achieve more. We, the people, have failed miserably because of the public education, dumbing us down to be at each other's throat and be, quote, competitive, versus saying, wait a minute, if I only received $1 as a round number, we have 365 million people in our country. If we only had 1% of the population that agreed to unite, $1 from 1% per month is $3.65 billion or $1 million per month. 3.65 million in 1 month at 1% of the total population. We, the people, have failed miserably at not coming together privately, unitedly, intelligently, respectfully, honestly, and the list is endless of positives because we've been dumbed down to be at each other's throats. We've been dumbed down to be competitive with each other. And it takes people.
What kind of situation is this? What kind of situation where this will really bear up and kind of have the most marketed effectiveness?
Well, if you look at census.gov, you look at the two largest populations in our country right now are the baby boomers and the millennials. Now, if you look at what I had to do in the medical field and the amount of years that I suffered, which would have been 30 years because of everybody in this country covering things up and being afraid to cross the public path via private communication. I had to wait for the internet to come out to find a doctor out of our country that was not only willing to challenge me, but more importantly, challenge me to a year's worth of research to even validate my own findings without me upfront verbally telling them my findings. And in so doing, I gave a sealed envelope with my findings, and 6 months into the research, when the doctor was detailing information about one specific patient's MRI, and when that patient information was being fully disclosed that there's no harm in that picture, and this is the way the picture is supposed to have looked, and when that individual doctor went to go point to a specific direction on the MRI of mine, and as soon as his finger pointed is when I stopped the doctor from speaking and asked him to turn around and look at me. And when he did, he said, "What's the matter?" I said, "Do you remember that envelope?" He said, "Envelope?" I said, "Yes, the sealed envelope that I told you that I had given to you the first day that I met with you, that had my original medical findings since the date of my 18th birthday forward, in which no doctor in this country had ever been willing to validate." I said, "I'm please asking you to please go get that envelope and bring it back into this room and open it in front of me and please read it." And he said, "You sure?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "But I didn't say anything." I said, "Well, actions speak louder than words. Your pointing with your finger already told me you know what you're doing. So please go get the envelope and bring it back." As he did, he sits down as he's reading it. The man's literally shaking his head in disbelief left and right to what I had typed up. When he gets done reading what I had typed up, he looks at me and he says these words first. Quote, "Why did I not become a doctor?" Now, at that age, I was 33. I looked at him and I said, "Well, gee," I said, "I'm only 33 years of age now, and you're the first person in my entire life that's not only been willing to challenge me, but more importantly, validate what I had found in my early 20s. I said, "If I couldn't have done it for myself, how do you expect me to do it for anyone else?" I said, "If I could have done my own surgery, I'd have done it years ago, but I've yet to figure out how to do that one." And he asked me to come back a few weeks later. When I did, what does he first ask me? Are you ready? "Would you please allow me to document your findings in the New England Journals of Medicine?" I said, "I'd be honored. Just don't use my name. My name's not for public information. What's for public information is the correct knowledge to any doctor as well as any patient in any part of the world. So my name's not important. The knowledge is what's important." I said, "That's all I care about. The knowledge needs to be appropriately disseminated to show the proof of the amount of fraud going on in the American Medical Society, as well as how it can be prevented in any other country in any part of the world." So I said, "I'd be honored."
Does anybody have any comments or questions for, it's Ron, right, you said?
Yes.
Any comments or questions for Ron before we go into our next speaker? And Ron, also, if anybody's interested, you're welcome to give out any of your personal information or a website or an email.
Sure. I'll just give you the email for now. My email
Go ahead, throw it out.
My email is universalliving@yahoo.com. And more than welcome to everybody who knows how to come together and willing to unite again and change things privately. That's how we'll change this country. We all have family, friends, and loved ones. Let's make a difference privately. Our family doesn't even have to know that we're the ones that helped them. The point is we did it without them even knowing. That's how everybody wins.
Well, beautiful, Randy. I think it's time to transition to our top of the hour topic here.
Yeah. Do we have, and it looks like we do, David, you're on the line?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Backed by popular demand. Boy, we've had so many great comments, so much feedback. In fact, Brad, who is our co-host here tonight, he actually has gone through quite a few of your hours. In fact, tell him what you told me today, Brad, about his videos.
Yeah, David, I really enjoyed your your participation on the call last week, so I took you up on your invitation and went to the YouTube channel, and I think I probably listened to your top 3 videos on there, probably at least minimum 2, probably 3 times for each one. And I'm out doing yard work or I'm working in the pool or something, but I got your stuff playing on there and just absorbing it. And I was just so amazed by the depth of research that you've gone into on that. So I'll be the first one to say thank you for kind of putting that out there, because it's a great resource, and I'm anxious to hear you again tonight.
Well, I'll tell you what the important thing about all that is. What you see in what I offer on the web is not research. It's the results of research. And over time, out of all the things that I learned, these are the only things that I teach. They represent maybe 1/100th or 1/250th of the amount of research I did. Not everything you read is going to lead to a viable argument against standard operating procedure on the part of government. And all I've brought to the Internet is what I feel constitutes an angle where you might get remedy. And so it's really just the surface of the depth of my research over time, what you see on the web. However, there are some very fundamental arguments that are huge that I feel, and a lot of other people feel, pull the rug right out from underneath the Internal Revenue Service, the state income tax authorities, and all who enforce the motor vehicle code against people who merely travel. And if you take a step back from that, the reason I key on only these, if you knew that there was a particular day and a particular hour that a UFO was going to land on the roof of the White House, it'd be hard to get you to talk about anything else, wouldn't it?
Sure.
And so all you see me doing is speaking of these 3 revenue streams I've proven are illegal. The reason being, if these revenue streams were corrected, if they stopped, if this revenue was no longer collected by government would shrink by about 90%. And that's got to be the biggest story of modern times, would be to shrink government to that degree to where instead of 10 patrol cars per square mile, there's only 1. What do you do then? It's called the Second Amendment. Suddenly people are relying upon themselves and each other instead of the government for existence and for progress. And if government shrank by 90%, how many Tomahawk missiles do you think we'd be pointed at herds of camels in countries, the names of which we can't even pronounce, all over the world? The banker parades in the banker's image, but in our name, to where we have the threat level pegging the meter this weekend because of ISIS and the fact that it's Independence Day celebrations. And you wonder if your child's going to come home from school, or are they going to be killed in an explosion at school? And how much different would, in fact, the entire planet be if government hadn't stolen all this money from us over these probably 8 or 9, 10 decades?
Right.
So that's why you don't hear me talking about anything else. But when you see only 3 or 4 arguments, understand these are the ones that do the heavy lifting. I can count pennies that the IRS is stealing, and I can prove they're stealing everything. And so my research is really very broad, and everyone should understand it's in the box. I argue statute, and I argue that regulations have been written to circumvent statute. And I only have really just a few constitutional arguments, so it would be very much a disservice to yourself to lump me in by any presumption with the anti-tax movement or the patriot movement. Everything I do is just the way lawyers would be doing it, and My education comes from judges I've read in easily in excess of 4,000 decisions. And you don't just sit around reading decisions. It was because I needed to look up the topic and study it to help people in litigation where I had been asked to help out in a dilemma. I've never defended guilty people, but I've given away easily over $250,000 worth of legal services to poor people who couldn't afford attorneys. So it was done in the unlicensed practice of law. And what you see on the web is just the heaviest lifting arguments. My research is really very broad. And thank you for your kind words.
Yes, well, with that, David, let's kind of transition then into the focus that you were planning on talking about, and I believe Randy was saying that you're going to kind of focus on the motor vehicle stuff tonight.
Yeah, that's a short focus. It's really a profoundly simple argument, and the intense part of that endeavor is, in fact, the research. There's a lot of research yet to be done because it's done on a state level to prove the point that I seek to underscore, and I don't have the inspiration to do 50 states research, because when you look at the volume of research you have to do to prove this one particular angle of attack of the Motor Vehicle Code and standard operating procedures, there's quite a bit to do in every state to prove just one single argument. And let me tell everybody that my name is David Myrland. Nothing you'll hear me say is intended as legal advice. Anything that sounds like that to you, just consider it something somebody else might do on a planet far, far away where the law matters. It doesn't matter here. I prove it on a daily basis. Believe it. I'm 5 for 6 against the State Attorney General of Oregon in County Superior Court. I've been docketed in the U.S. Supreme Court twice out of only 5 attempts, and that was on tax law before the October term of 1998. My victories against the Attorney General of Oregon occurred before 2002, so I'm not new to any of this. I've been doing this since June of 1988, when I started reading tax statutes after the IRS made me angry. It's such a sweet story. I was happy as a clam, world's fastest bartender, had my own 2-car garage wood shop and an American design for a school chair that folds over into a 4-step step stool, and I had that in 5 different furniture stores made out of oak, and I was going a different direction. I was about to start looking for a foreign furniture manufacturer to turn out a bunch of these and get into business, but life takes its turns and its toll, doesn't it? So the IRS came to my door in 1988 and made me angry, and by 1994 I'd completed my treatise on the differences between the tax code and the IRS. And there are many differences. Some are huge. And after 1996 and litigation on federal tax issues, I discovered that litigating tax law was futile, so I gravitated towards state law, of course, traffic court, and was fortunate enough to no end to be introduced to Kurt Riggin, a bona fide legal scholar who said, okay, here we have the Patriot Movement and the Uniform Commercial Code and all these arguments. Let's put them in this box and seal the box and put it over there in the dark corner and ignore it for life. Here's our state constitution, the state motor vehicle code, court rules, go. And those are the only tools. And he already had bodies of prosecutors all over Washington State. He was just a terror in criminal procedure and knew the motor vehicle code front and back, and he kept my feet on the straight and narrow for the purposes of all state law analysis and state litigation. So I owe a great deal to him. He's my mentor. And I should tell you at this point, Louis Ewing and I are both creations of Kurt Riggin. It's his confidence in the law, his attitude when he knows the law is on his side that Lewis and I both inherited from him. And it's the biggest lesson is when the law is on your side, stand on it like you got the legislature standing right behind you, every member of the legislature, and shout it through a bullhorn that what they're trying to do to you can't stand. And so God bless Kurt Reagan. Now, the Motor Vehicle Code. As early as I don't know if you went state to state, probably East Coast first. You have the early 1900s, like even before 1910, there was the emergence of a technology used to deliver commodities to businesses in the form of electric trucks that ran on motors that carried huge batteries to power the motors. And they paved certain streets in towns closest to the businesses that formed the nucleus of any community. And they'd all be on Main Street and streets very close to Main Street. And they had paved roads, however, with vehicles so big enough to carry not only the goods they wanted to deliver, but big enough to carry batteries to power motors that were big enough to power the trucks. The trucks' weight became, their gross weight became so heavy, it was hard to pave streets that would stand up to the trucks. And so the government stepped in to regulate. Vehicles in commerce, motor vehicles, not engine vehicles, motor vehicles. So in your state, and it'll always come back to this because it's a state-by-state research project that has to be undertaken. You go to your very earliest motor vehicle code, the first one, the first motor vehicle code for your state, and observe the definition of public highway, the definition of street, the definition of motor vehicle, the definition of transportation, and somewhere in there you're going to find a scheme, a statutory scheme that will apply those regulations strictly to those vehicles used to deliver goods. That's called transportation. The movement of goods, commodities, or persons by a carrier. And you'll find that the earliest definitions only applied the motor vehicle code to those vehicles using the streets as a place of business, those vehicles in commerce. And as you move forward, and this will be a lot of reading, you read every amendment to the motor vehicle code. From the beginning, the requirements that you put your gross weight on a sticker on the side of the truck, the requirement that you observe the gross weight limits that are on the signs beside the road, so you aren't allowed to go on certain roads if your vehicle weighs over a certain amount, and the requirement that you have safe equipment like turn signals and brakes and tires and all the other stuff that goes along with it. You'll find over time those were kept in place, and nowhere, despite the mountains of amendments that probably took place that changed the scope of the motor vehicle code, nowhere has your state legislature ever expressed an intent to broaden the applicability of the motor vehicle code to subjects that weren't the original subjects of the motor vehicle code. They never said, we're going to broaden this from those that use the streets in commerce to other subjects like those who use the streets simply for travel. You won't find that expression. The original motor vehicle code was in place, and it was never broadened under legislative intent to apply to anything other than those vehicles used in commerce. A great case on this is Buck versus Kuykendall. And I'm going to my website. My website is wevgov.com. WeVGov, as in we the people versus government, wevgov.com. And I'm going to the motor vehicle code page. And there, near the very bottom of the page, I have a bunch of federal criminal statutes that are violated, if in fact I'm correct, violated through the standard operating procedures of those enforcing the code. And I scroll upward, and what I'm looking for is you'll see there that there's an entire list of provisions from throughout the United States, state by state, county by county, that I found on the internet. Let's go to the top of that page, the motor vehicle code page on wevgov.com, and these are the only 2 court cases that I cite in my work regarding right to travel. The Patriot Movement, the anti-tax movement, whatever you want to call them, they've always relied heavily on upwards of 900 cases from the state level that indeed say there's a right to travel. And while that's not a faulty approach to this, it's not a statutory one. And so I'm leaning towards statutes and municipal ordinance for my argument, but I do cite these 2 cases. This first one is the U.S. Supreme Court, 1925. And you know, the Supreme Court really doesn't mention things that aren't before the court. They tend to not branch out. They'll always point out to you, we wonder whether or not this argument would be true, but it's not before the court, so we're not going to decide that matter. You'll see that in plenty of Supreme Court cases. Here you have the mention of the possibility of a right, but they don't decide it because it wasn't before the court. But this is 1925, the U.S. Supreme Court. I'm on the motor vehicle code page of wevgov.com, right near the top. This is Buck versus Kuykendall, 1925. The right to travel interstate by auto vehicle upon the public highways may be a privilege or immunity of citizens of the United States. A citizen may have, under the 14th Amendment, the right to travel and transport his property upon them by auto vehicle, but he has no right to make the highways his place of business by using them as a common carrier for hire. Such use is a privilege which may be granted or withheld by the state in its discretion without violating either the Due Process Clause or the Equal Protection Clause. There the Supreme Court said, basically, this is a bullhorn and a emergency flare up in the air. Hey, you may have a right. It might be a right to use the highways for public travel. We're just saying. But before the court is their decision or their topic, which is you have no right to make the streets a place of business. That's a privilege. So anyway, here they say, this might be a right, everybody. And if the Supreme Court thinks in 1925, hey, excuse me, but you might be missing something here, I take note. That's Buck versus Kuykendall, 267 U.S. 307. 267 U.S. 307 at page 314, 1925. The next excerpt is Neely versus Bach, Washington State Supreme Court. That's where I'm at, in Washington State, 1935. And this is 50 Pacific 2nd, 524. 50 Pacific 2nd, 524. It will be observed that a highway within the contemplation of the Act is everywhere a place of whatever nature. Hello?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I'll start this over. it will be observed that a highway within the contemplation of the act is, quote, every way or place of whatever nature open as a matter of right to the use of the public for the purposes of vehicular travel, end quote. There can be no reason but that this definition is broad enough to include streets in incorporated cities because they are open as a matter of right to the use of the public for purposes of public vehicular travel. Really? I never heard of a street that was open as a matter of right. They've sold me on this privilege since I got my learner's permit as a sophomore in high school. What's the deal? So at the top of the motor vehicle code page on wevgov.com, it starts off with a picture of a guy that it's a meme. This guy went viral on the web. It's the casually pepper spray everything cop. And they put this guy in all kinds of different photos, but there he is. And then the first paragraph says that public vehicular travel is recognized as a right in legislation from coast to coast. Public vehicular travel. Definition of highway. Any way, lane, street, road, boulevard, or other surface open as a matter of right to public vehicular travel. I never heard of anything that was open as a matter of right. In October 2005, I was taking a break from some tax work that I was doing, and I read my motor vehicle code brief, asking in the back of my mind, what is it that scares them so badly about this brief that they run from traffic ticket after traffic ticket? I read that brief of 17 pages about 10 times, and each time, one sentence stood out to me. It was from a 1961 Washington State Sessions law that defined, it was Chapter 1, Section 1X of the Highway Licenses Act, that defined public highway as any way, lane, street, road, boulevard, or other surface open as a matter of right to public vehicular travel. I said, damn if that doesn't sound artful. Open as a matter of right to public vehicular travel. And I attribute this, of course, to the fact I've read so many U.S. Supreme Court cases. I can tell when a phrase possesses a lot of gravity. And so I went to Google, and at the top of this page on wevgov.com, you see I have open as a matter of right to public vehicular travel, and then 4 search engines. I'm going to click on Google, and it's an automatic search for that phrase. I get 3.29 million hits on that phrase. Open as a matter of right to public vehicular travel. The first time I did it, October of 2005, I got 464,000 hits. In 4 or 5 months of my radio listeners and students putting in different counties, different cities, and different states before the phrase and doing the search, got Google all the way up to 19.2 million hits on that phrase. It's in the law everywhere. So my conclusion, my argument, is that the legislatures and the city and county councils across the United States recognize that highways are open as a matter of right to public vehicular travel, or they wouldn't have put it in all this law from coast to coast. And so, coupled with the contention that the motor vehicle code has never been broadened to include anything other than those who use the streets as a place of business. So I brought it up to present day. I found an amazing amount of references like this in my state, Washington. It was by far the best resource out of all the states that I looked at. We've got Washington State Attorney General's reports from the 50s and 60s, Washington State Supreme Court, as I read, and the Washington State Legislature as late as, 2003, they revised the second-degree motor vehicle theft statute because they wanted the penalty to be stiffer because of there's a rash of car thefts here in Washington State. And they revisited that statute, and in 3 places that statute says if anybody takes without permission an automobile or motor vehicle, well, that kind of says they're 2 different things, doesn't it? And nowhere in the motor vehicle code do we find automobiles under all those requirements, only motor vehicles. Every motor vehicle is an automobile, but not every automobile is a motor vehicle. A motor vehicle is an automobile used in commerce. And so you hear me using only statutory scheme to argue and prove my conclusion. So I put together a course that's available on wevgov.com on the products page that offers in Microsoft Word and none of this is legal advice. If somebody else might want to use this, it's your own device. I have a traffic ticket, and let's say I'm in South Dakota, and I get this course, and in Microsoft Word it has a Texas motion to dismiss a traffic ticket, a Washington motion to dismiss a traffic ticket. I think there's one done for California. And I look at how the course was used to change the documents that are offered into a Washington state-specific, California-specific, Texas-specific motion to dismiss. And I'll take the name of my judge, my prosecutor, my cop, the members of the county council of the county that wrote me the ticket, the governor, the director of licensing, whoever I want to join as a similarly situated criminal. I'll put their names in an affidavit of joinder and file that affidavit of joinder with Congress's Homeland Security Committee and the Department of Justice and tell them I want to join the complaint that Dave Myrland and Kurt Riggin filed March 9th of 06, and I hereby name these people from my state, my county, my city as similarly situated criminals as the ones Dave and Kurt identified in Washington State in 2006 as guilty of felony federal racketeering and extortion statutes. So what I've just done is joined my local actors to an existing criminal complaint of 2006, so I don't have to write a new criminal complaint. I just made that one from 2006 my complaint. I don't have to write another memorandum. I just made that memorandum my memorandum by filing a joinder as a similarly situated party. So now I file my motion to dismiss, and my exhibits are my affidavit of joinder to the federal government complaining that these people are criminals, and its exhibit is my traffic ticket, and I send this into the court as a motion to dismiss and demand that they have the cop at the hearing so on the stand we can have a full, robust discussion about public vehicular travel as it appears in the statutes I found in my state. And what they've done in a lot of instances, you can't predict corruption, so I make no guarantees, but a lot of people's tickets were dismissed when they told the cop not to appear at the hearing so they can dismiss the ticket. Because statutory language and statutory scope is totally on my side when I argue that it's never been written to apply to anything other than those that use the street as a place of business.
Did I understand, David, that the research within the course is done for the various states? Is that what you're saying, or am I getting that wrong?
No, it's not done. I don't have the time or inspiration to do a 50 states project. So when you get the course, you'll have all my research. It's done for Washington State, and it's adapted for a couple of other states that people called me from those states and said I have a ticket, and I helped them out by joining them to my complaint and doing their motion to dismiss for them. And you get that in Microsoft Word. But if you're in one of the states I haven't done it for yet, which is 46 states, you have to do your own. But the documents come in Microsoft Word, and there's, I think there's more than 10 hours of instruction that comes with the course in audio. And then you do your best to follow this procedure. And again, this isn't legal advice. And there are other people that use other issues that seem to have some pretty good success. I've heard good things about the common law default, but that's not arguing statute. That's a procedural victory all the way. And so, rather than restate what I just told everybody on the call, if you were in one state and you look at the way I've adapted the motion to dismiss for different states and done adapted the course to fit other states than Washington, where it originated, You just take those Microsoft Word documents and handle your own case and list those people in criminal complaint to the federal government. But it begins with going to your state's legislation and probably the Internet and locate through an Internet search the provisions in your state that say open as a matter of right to public vehicular travel. And use those as proof that you're correct.
Yeah, because I've done that, and I think if I'm understanding you, David, you're saying you can't always go just what's current on the internet, because I've looked at the codes and I've looked online, I should say. I'm here in Florida, and I'm looking for that dichotomy between motor vehicle and automobile, and I fully comprehend the distinction that you're making. I grasp that, but I'm not seeing that in the stuff that I'm finding online. Something tells me I need to go to a law library or something
and
for that.
Also in Florida, they call it public vehicular traffic, not public vehicular travel. So anyway, you start with the original motor vehicle code to make the first argument, which is the scope has never been broadened, and look at what it started as. And the second argument is, even in today's statutes and references in motor vehicle or the ordinances, I find that streets are open as a matter of right.
Well, again, I totally comprehend what you're saying. My point is, I'm not seeing the digital. I'd say the paper trail. I'm not seeing the digital trail for that in Florida, which tells me I believe you. It exists somewhere on the Florida statutes, and maybe they're hiding it from me, or maybe I'm not seeing it. But do you think I need to go to a library because I need to dig? I've got 3 law libraries at my access right here, and where I am.
In the course, here's what I tell the student to do. Go to your own county archive of municipal codes. Go to neighboring counties and research their municipal codes. You'll find references to the definition, or you'll find definitions of highway and public street in ordinances relating to a city's authority to hire civil engineers to repair roads, to contract with private companies for repair of the roads. You'll find it in loitering statutes. It's illegal to cruise up and down this street all night, back and forth. Maybe in statutes or ordinances relating to parking lots and parking lots of stores or lots devoted strictly to parking, and possibly parking meters. Anywhere you might find the definition of highway, look through chapter after chapter, title after title, at all of the definitions of public highway everywhere. Because I found references like this, open as a matter of right to public vehicular travel, in those ordinances in many different states and many different cities. So you start with hard copy research, stuff you wouldn't find on the web, and every time you find one, photocopy it.
And then I guess it's in your course, but how do you then bring this stuff forward and then apply it? I guess you use some of the motions.
I take every reference to that open as a matter of right to public vehicular travel, and I type out that provision in Microsoft Word, and then I copy and paste it into my affidavit of joinder that I'm going to file with the federal government saying, look, I've got the same laws here in my state as Dave and Kurt did in Washington State when they filed that criminal complaint March 9th of 06, and I hereby complain in kind because I got the same pattern of misconduct and extortion and racketeering happening to me right here in my state. Look at these provisions.
And then is there how many times are you aware of? I guess I'm asking on a percentage. I mean, how many times do you know that this has been applied, and then what's been the outcome over those number of applications?
My brief was working great before I even found this phrase and expanded the research of Kurt Riggin. I had a 17-page brief, and now it's 34 pages, and it was working like dynamite the first beforehand. Then I enhanced the memorandum, and I don't stay in touch with people that are doing traffic cases. It's way off of my radar. I really concentrate on criminal tax cases, and so traffic cases aren't even on my radar. I don't sell very many of the courses, but at one point in time I was selling them, and people had some successes where they told the police, don't show up at the hearing so we can dismiss the ticket.
Wait, who was telling them that? Who was telling the police?
Somebody was telling the cops, don't show up at the hearing. It was probably the judge and the prosecutor.
Okay. So in other words, you took this document, you filed it into the case before the hearing, and that's what said, don't show up. We don't want to mess with this, because they basically got a tiger by the tail when they looked down the barrel of this brief. Then, huh?
When I sent the notice in requesting a contested hearing on the traffic ticket, I would include a copy of what went to the Department of Justice and to Congress saying you got a bunch of criminals here. See how that works?
Yeah.
So you tip your hand in advance of the hearing saying you've bitten off more than you can chew here. Unless you can get that cop on the stand and discuss public vehicular travel, you really ought to walk away from this. It's such a sweet story.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. I guess it works best. I'll say it that way. I guess it works best for somebody who's got the presence and the confidence to be prepared to go into a hearing or a courtroom like that, and to be able to go toe to toe with an officer if it ever came to that. But I guess from what you're saying, you're not aware that it's ever even come to that, correct?
Well, here's what it would come to if it were my hearing. And this is on wevgov.com. Go to the citizen's arrest page. And there is all the case law to prove you got the right to arrest a felon. And when I go to traffic court, you either put on the record that the motor vehicle code has been broadened beyond its original intent, or you got to dismiss this ticket, because the only other thing that we're going to discuss is when it's convenient to arrest you, Your Honor, because you're a felon. If you can't put proof on the record that I owe this, and you're trying to steal it from me with your authority, you've used the mail to mail me the hearing notice. That's mail fraud. 20 years in prison, 18 U.S.C. Section 1341. You got an internet site saying I got to pay this. That's wire fraud, 1343, 20 years in prison. Conspiring against my rights, 18 U.S.C. 241, 10 years in prison. You're a felon many times over, and so I don't want to talk about anything but proof that the motor vehicle code's been broadened, or when is it convenient to arrest you because you're a felon. That's what we're here for today. I'm not here to listen to you hem and haw about, well, everybody's got to pay their fair share. You're a thief. If you steal from me, you're going to be arrested. And I promise I won't break the law when I do it. Next.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any of them arrested?
I've never gone in on traffic tickets on this. It's not a fight that I care to wage. And I can't find really very many Americans that are interested in flexing their muscles, even if the law's on their side, so it's a moot point most times.
Anybody have any questions or comments about everything that he's talking about?
I would like to say we do care, and we have tried, and I haven't used this one yet, but we've tried pretty much everything else, and they walk all over it. And my granddaughter got in trouble and they literally could not get jurisdiction. They handcuffed him and took him out of the courtroom, put him in a car, and drove him around like they did the guy in New York that they killed. There's a name for that. They did that to him, taking him to the sheriff's department to book him, brought the mother and the daughter in, got jurisdiction, brought him back, and said something to him. I don't remember. In other words, don't forget who your daddy is. And they got jurisdiction.
When you say they got jurisdiction, all I can picture is a whole bunch of the Patriot Movement's arguments about what is and is not jurisdiction, and I don't make any of those claims. So when you say they didn't have jurisdiction, I don't know the reason why they didn't have jurisdiction. I never argued jurisdiction, and so I can't really comment on what you just said beyond the point that they steamrolled you. And using only statute, then it shifts the burden of proof. The presumption of correctness shifts. The burden of proof shifts upon introduction of evidence to the contrary. I submit evidence to the contrary in the form of the statutes they have to go by, the statutes that they're using against me. And so my tools are totally removed from the list of tools that the movement uses. So I can't make an assessment as to whether or not your argument was valid to begin with. And even with statutes, they steamroll, and that forces me to defer to rights to citizen's arrest instead of just a dismissal of the ticket like it should be. And I'm not telling you you're going to win every case. These people are as corrupt as the day is long. They've had their way for decades. They pay the police to be ignorant, and in a lot of instances, stupid on top of that. And so they've got the guns, they've got the apparatus, they've got all the police that want to earn a pension and buy a speedboat. And so the odds are against you. But this is the game they're playing. And I'm not preaching success here. I'm preaching knowledge. This is what they're doing. They're depriving you of the right of public vehicular travel. What you're able to do to curb their appetite is anybody's guess, and it's not going to happen in one case. It's going to happen in the form of 50 really mad people standing outside of the sheriff's office saying, you get that SOB out of that patrol car and off the force, or we will. Because they won't listen to reason.
Dave? This is Chris in Las Vegas. I must be getting hard of hearing because I tried every phonetic combination I could to get to your site with no success. So could you give us a phonetic on it?
Yeah. We, as in we the people. V, as in versus. And gov, as in government. Like Roe v. Wade, this is we v. gov. WEVGOV.
.com, right?
.com.
Hey, I've tried that. Is it a capital or a large case anywhere in there, or what?
It doesn't matter when you're spelling a website name. Only after a slash do you need to adhere to the capitals and lowercase. So all lowercase, WEVGov. WEVGOV.com.
All right.
Brad, can you check that real quick?
Chris, you're on a list, my friend.
Yeah, Chris, I'm on it right now. It's working for me. Yeah,
Chris, you are on a list, my friend. They are blocking you.
I figure that's what it is.
I'm shocked.
I'm not.
Brad, can you pull it up?
Oh, they are afraid of Chris.
Yeah,
I got to tell you that
right now.
Well, that's a good thing. They got to know their place and leave it to the Americans to tell them so.
Absolutely.
And they're going to force your hand. Second Amendment. And
they know Chris will go tell everybody at the Bundy Ranch too.
That's the nature of government. So that. Oh, by the way, on the motor vehicle code page at the top on wevgov.com. You've got that picture of the Founding Fathers and the cops spraying pepper spray all over them. And then right below that, there's a little paragraph and 4 search engines, links you click on for the automatic search for open as a matter of right to public vehicular travel. and then you have a link that says this criminal complaint. When you click on that, a window will pop up that has the 2006 Motor Vehicle Code complaint that Kurt Riggin and I filed with Congress and the Department of Justice ourselves. So you'll see the entire criminal complaint and the 34-page memorandum to see exactly how I made the argument, how full Washington state records are of public servants referring to the roads as open as a matter of right. There's a bunch of wonderful sites in that memorandum, and you get that in the Motor Vehicle Code course in PDF format and a instruction on how to put it on the record in traffic court.
David.
Yes.
This is Dave in the Thumb. I think you're pretty awesome. I got to ask you, would you consider yourself a patriot?
That's for other people to judge. In 1988, the IRS made me angry, and I haven't had a vacation since. It's all been civic duty. I've had no life. I've sacrificed everything to battle these illegal revenue streams. And I've branched off into a lot of other. I'm 5 for 6 against the State Attorney General of Oregon, and all of that was under the Unfair Trade Practices Act. Had nothing to do with the illegal revenue streams. It's the fact that I've returned to these specific arguments because they make the biggest difference. They shrink government down to where humans could actually control the agencies that they establish because there's not enough money for them to get out of control. So these arguments are really the solution to a great deal.
Well, I'm legally blind. I don't see very well, but I have vision, and I do believe that you are one of the great patriots of this nation, of this century.
Listen,
you're doing an awesome job, and you keep up the good work. I appreciate what you've done and what you're saying, and appreciate you being on this call. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, and let me give you a whole lot that you can benefit from that doesn't require reading on talkshoe.com, TALKSHOE, talkshoe.com. My show, No Confidence, is at 59615. So if you went to the home,
buddy, you got to repeat that.
Here I go. I'm going to repeat it.
Okay.
You go to talkshoe.com, and there's a click on Live Now, and it'll take you to a list of all the shows that are underway when you visit the site.
TALK?
SHOE, TalkShoe.
Okay.
And you locate SHOE.
Okay, OE. All right. Oh,
.com.
I'm putting this in my text. I'm texting this to myself, so I got a multi-tap here. So I got to make sure I got this right here. So talkshoe.com. No.
I'll get it to you, Dave.
Okay, thank you, Randy. I appreciate it.
You got it.
And my show number is 59615. No Confidence, 59615. And there's a whole archive of recorded shows right there where you're going to hear a whole lot more of this attitude.
Awesome. I love it.
And thanks for your kind words. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. Happy Independence Day.
I hope so.
Yeah, what I like about that, Dave, on TalkShoe is that those programs are downloadable, so I've downloaded about a half a dozen of them and put them on my iPhone so I can be listening to them even when I'm not streaming off the Internet. So I really like that little feature as well.
There's not enough hours in the day, in the week,
there
in the month.
Yeah. However, understand that what you get from me is going to be very compressed. I'm terrible at small talk.
I don't know. I think you're doing a hell of a job.
Well, thanks. The show is young. There's other things I'd really like to share with everybody. If you think we've beaten the Motor Vehicle Code issue to death.
Yeah, go ahead. Lay it out.
Okay. First, let's capsulate. The Motor Vehicle Code has never been written to extend beyond its original intent. In 1908 to 1921, right in there, you're going to find an original motor vehicle code for your state that only sought to regulate the commercial use of the streets. And nowhere will you find legislative intent in the legislative notes to any amendments made to the Motor Vehicle Code. You won't find them mentioned that they intend to broaden the scope of the Motor Vehicle Code to those not engaged in commerce on the streets. And then hopefully you can find in your state references to the highways being open as a matter of right to public vehicular travel.
I wonder if anybody has any records of how much money they've made off of that, illegal use of the Motor Vehicle Code.
Right. So many seminars, so little time. Somebody else can count those dollars. I know that the remedy really isn't in knowing how much they've stolen, but rather in stopping them from stealing more.
Well, Rodney Rouzan said he's the police officer in California. I think a lot of people on this call know Rodney Rouzan or have heard of his case. Rodney said that they just in L.A. County alone bring in $900 billion per year in tax in the traffic citations.
Yeah, and it's not easy to cut off the head of that snake. It's huge. So all I can do is give you the basis, and what you're able to do with it is anybody's guess. Now, in the last week, less than a week, 6 days ago, the Supreme Court said that even those who aren't going to marry somebody of the opposite sex have a fundamental right to a marriage license. And I've been thinking about that ever since. And everybody wants to listen very closely to this because I have something on the web that you're going to want to go and purchase. And it's not $799.95. It's not $69.95. It's $2.50. And it's priced like this because at that price, it should spread like wildfire all over the Internet and all across America, which is where I want it. People have a concern across the nation. I listen to talk radio all day long, and I listen to the best, which, of course, excludes Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh, but it includes I like Sean Hannity. He did a real good job reviewing these two Supreme Court decisions of last week also. Laura Ingraham, former Supreme Court clerk, I think, for Justice Thomas. Mark Levin, wonderfully educated attorney and constitutional scholar and author. And Michael Savage, who has an incredible education and resume. And I try to fit in time for Billy Cunningham now and then. And then Dana Lash, L-O-E-S-C-H. Dana Lash is pretty knowledgeable. She appears a lot on CNN, Bill Maher, and on Fox. She was on Megyn Kelly's program last night. Ridicule follows the ridiculous, and contempt is appropriate for the contemptible. That's what Dana Lash does. She's got 3 hours of ridicule directed at the right places. She used to be a liberal, snake, sassy witch, and she converted to conservatism and Christianity, and she's still got this attitude that she just turned in a different direction, and she's wonderful to listen to. So anyway, I listen to talk radio all day long, and naturally there's a concern across the country as to whether those with religious beliefs that are in conflict with this proclamation by the Supreme Court will be sanctioned in the future in a myriad of ways, of course, that are available for refusing service to gay fiancés. And I've been thinking about that all week, and you will find the answer to this problem at wevgov.com. Get into the website, wevgov.com. On the left-hand side, there's a list of links starting with mission statement. That takes you back to the home page. where the mission statement is. Then you got citizen's arrest of a felon, federal income taxation, state income taxation, motor vehicle code, federal criminal statutes, and then the last one I just added a couple hours ago, traditional marriage. Click on that link, share that page that pops up, copy and paste that link to that page for that $2.50 document. Send it to everybody you have in your email circles, everybody on your list, everybody you know. Send them the link to buy that $2.50 document. It's my method to circumvent the possibility, the likelihood that you will be sanctioned, sued, oppressed for refusing to provide what a gay couple seeks of you. Generally. This is not specifically tailored only to bakeries or only to pastors. It's for everybody who thinks that, gosh, I rent out this hall at my church here, I'm the pastor, and I don't want to rent it out for that. Or, yeah, I bake wedding cakes, but not for that. Or I take photographs of weddings, but not for that. If that's you, this approach solves the problem. $2.50. And when you get to the shopping cart page that pops up, enter Shannon, for our host, Randy Shannon, in the coupon promo code window, and click on Update. And what that assures is that Randy Shannon will receive, to help her keep her doors open, she'll get 10% of the sale. Purchase the document. It's several pages where I discuss an approach to business. Any business that feels that they don't operate their business to do that for those people. I also wrote a statute that you'll find in the document. I've written over 110 statutes that I'd like to see on the books, maybe over 140. I haven't counted. I did it years ago. But whenever I saw a problem, I wrote a statute to cure the problem. And I got a whole collection of citizens' initiatives or statutes I'd like to see on the books. And so I can crank out a statute in no time. And what you're dealing with here is a state-granted privilege. It's a license to marry. And while the Supreme Court says marriage is a fundamental right, you got the states issuing a license that says, in form, marriage is a privilege granted by the state. Oh, which one are you talking about here? A fundamental right or a privilege granted by the state? Because they're never the same thing. Skip that and just move along as if the state can license the exercise of a fundamental right. Okay, I'm traversing. I'm skipping over an entire group of arguments that I could make against this, because when I jump over those onto another lily pad, I gain all these protections. State-granted privilege, driver's license. By accepting this license, you hereby consent to give blood at a traffic stop if law enforcement feels you're intoxicated. And if you don't give it freely, we'll take it. That's in a whole bunch of states. We'll take your blood if you don't offer it freely. We think you've been drinking. That's called implied consent. By accepting the license, it's implied that you consent to this condition. You've waived rights to privacy, waived rights to your blood. You have to blow in a breathalyzer, implied consent, or we'll suspend your license if you won't take the test, because we think you've been drinking. It's called implied consent. In the document for $2.50 at wevgov.com, and at $2.50 you can tell I'm only trying to keep my doors open too, trying to pay the light bill. In that document, the statute, in fact, I'm gonna read the statute here on the air, and let's see here. I manage mountains of data. Give me just 1 second. Here we go. Okay. The statute, this is a copyrighted document, by the way. The statute reads, in fact, the segment of the 4-page document, I'll read you a paragraph from it. It says, implied consent. By accepting a driver's license, you consent to give blood, by force if necessary in some states, or to submit to a breathalyzer at the request of law enforcement when you operate a motor vehicle in your state. What if, and then there's statute number 704.2015, implied consent, licenses to marry. Listen to this. This is the answer. All individuals who seek to benefit in any way by virtue of the fact that they have applied for and received a license to marry shall be understood to have waived all rights to legal remedy against or in relation to any person who fails for any reason to provide products or services relating to the status of such individual or individuals under such licenses. Magic. Can you hear the justice? If you accept this license, since it's state-granted privilege, the state can condition the issuance of the license upon any set of terms it deems fit. And so, to get this license, straight couples and gay couples have to waive their rights to sue businesses that don't offer what they sought under such a license. There. Everybody can be discriminated against. There's no equal protection violation. A bakery that wants to cater strictly to same-sex couples can refuse services to a straight couple because the person possessing the license or seeking the license or having applied for the license has waived their rights to legal remedy against such businesses. Anyway, get the document. It's $2.50. When the shopping cart page pops up, copy and paste the address of that shopping cart page into your email and email it to everybody you've ever heard of. And tell them that here's a scheme, a legal approach to avoiding retaliation for not providing services or products sought by those who would, if you satisfied them, violate your conscience, your religious beliefs, your sensibilities of any nature. And I appreciate in advance and thank you in advance for any and all participation in this regard. And after page 4 of that document where I describe this approach, you're going to find the Oberfell versus Hodges decision that the Supreme Court rendered. So anyway, for just $2.50, there's a plan for avoiding sanctions when all you're doing is defending your religious beliefs. And I'm happy to offer that. If somebody came into the business that I was operating to benefit couples who were to be engaged in normal holy matrimony, it would be a matter of, I don't have anything for you. It's not that I refuse to provide services, it's that I don't provide the services you're seeking. Everything I have is designed to celebrate and commemorate the normal matrimony of heterosexual couples. I don't have anything for you, or I would. Believe me. They can't sue somebody like that. And that's the other approach in this. For churches, pastors, ministers, magistrates, photographers, bakers, you simply offer things that are only in celebration of normal matrimony. For instance, gosh, you've asked us to remodel your kitchen. All we do is sun decks. And so I can't really in good conscience take this contract because I don't have the expertise or understanding of what you need to offer my services to you. It's a very simple solution, but to hear it described, you'll get an entire couch for your protests so that you understand if you simply everybody's coming from, I do weddings, I photograph weddings, I bake wedding cakes, and it's general. It doesn't say what kind of weddings. And that's where the discrimination happens. And so if you said, I do heterosexual wedding photography, you can't be sued for not doing something else. It's not a service you offer. So anyway, $2.50, mail it to everybody, and it's a start. And if I had that document and I was concerned, I'd go to a local lawyer and say, draw me up some contracts. This is what I want to do. I want to offer my services this way. And that brings us to the health care bill. Any questions about defending your religious liberties in the face of the decision of last week?
I'm on your website right now, and I don't see traditional marriage in the left-hand side.
On the home page, you can click on the word enter, and you enter the website. And then on the left-hand side, you got a menu of links on the left, and the bottom of those links on the upper left, right below federal criminal statutes, should say traditional marriage.
There's nothing underneath federal criminal statutes other than products available.
I hate it when that happens. It works on my computer, and if you give it a while, it should work. It doesn't. I just put the file on the web a little while ago, and it might take a while to propagate. That's about the only answer I've got for you. It works on mine, and there's probably other callers that'll say it's working on theirs, and it is right below federal criminal statutes. There's going to be a link that appears with its own black box beside it with a planet inside of that little box that says traditional marriage. It'll be there.
Okay, thank you.
David,
Yeah, my
this
pleasure.
is Charlie
Thank you.
in Colorado.
Who? Shelley?
No, it's Charlie, just like the boy's name.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Hi, David. I want to tell you, just like Ron had said, it wasn't until I got the link from Randy. I don't know how I have not come across you in over a decade, but I for the past really 5-6 hours since I got the email from Randy, I've gone through a lot of your work, the body of your work, and it's amazing. My hat's off to you, and I thank you.
Well, you have a bad attitude.
David, go back. There's so many points that I want to be mindful of other callers, but the Supreme Court decision on Obamacare and the gay marriage. We have to keep in mind the Supreme Court renders an opinion, not law. They are violating the 10th Amendment. If we recognize that they render an opinion that is counterintuitive to anything that has to do with the Constitution, it has to be null and void.
Charlie, you're going to love what I have to say. I don't mean to cut you off for the sake of cutting you off.
Cut me off.
let's run right to the bottom of this in a couple of ways that are huge. For an individual to commit treason, okay, you look at that individual and you say, gosh, he's working with his friends. They're picking up their rifles. They're out to get the president, or they're out to do this, or they're out to set fire to, okay, and that's the form treason may take, or seditious conspiracy, or rebellion or insurrection. These are the name of federal felony statutes, 18 U.S.C., section 2381 through 2384. Okay?
I'm with you on those.
Okay, what would it look like if an individual did this? Oh, there he is. They're picking up guns and gas cans, and it's the normal, what do you call it? The analogous or stereotypical parade of pitchforks and torches. Okay, and they are committing that crime. But what does the crime look like when a public servant does it? It always takes the shape of an abuse of authority. It doesn't take the shape of a gas can or a firearm. It takes the shape of their pen and their twisted will. And if you were to read the dissenting opinion in both of those cases, you've got 4 Supreme Court justices that think the others have committed treason.
Exactly.
Why? How can you, I don't mean why, I mean how can you arrive at any other conclusion but that the ones in those decisions are in a conspiracy to deprive you of rights in violation of 18 U.S.C. 241, conspiracy against rights? How are they doing anything other than helping the racketeering scheme that is the health care bill? When you try to put their conduct in the middle of criminal statutes, that's when you're making headway. And when you have, who am I to contradict Scalia and what's his face? I hate to say that.
Kennedy.
No, Kennedy's in the majority.
No.
Scalia, Thomas, and Alito. There we go. And who am I to contradict them? When they say this decision is bad for these reasons, it sounds like my rights have been violated by several justices who obviously talked about it among themselves before they issued the opinion. We got these people concurring with this, and the dissent says it violates my rights. Well, how is that not an expert opinion that felonies have been committed?
Isn't the Supreme Court just a subsidiary of Monsanto?
Excuse me?
Isn't the Supreme Court just a subsidiary of Monsanto?
Whatever it is or isn't, we gotta stay on topic.
Well, may I stay on topic then? I would like to have everybody have this website.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So you have the dissenting justices branding those in the majority as what can't be construed to be anything other than criminals. Who am I to contradict them? I got professional opinions now in those dissents saying that those people are criminals. Now,
David?
Yes?
Chris near Las Vegas. I've recently had to do some research and found a treatise from Henry S. Noyes and YES on the rise of the common law, federal pleading, Iqbal Twombly, and the application of judicial experience. And what it says is Justice Roberts, who has either been compromised or is a deep cover revolutionary terrorist in a black robe, has instructed the justices to abandon their neutral, fair, unbiased supposed opinions and get down off the bench and assume the position of on the team member of the favored side that they choose to ally against, usually against we the people when we're appearing as natural pro pers or pro se's in their courts. It would be interesting to find the numerical profiles of what percentages pro se's win in these communist-controlled black robe bar courts that operate from the bottom to the top.
Yeah, I have to operate where the remedy is. Okay? For felons, you get handcuffs. And for everybody guilty of what you just outlined, you're still going to have to move into the federal criminal statutes to prove you have authority over these people to arrest them, prosecute them, whatever. So I already tagged one of those grounds, and there's a million other grounds people might be able to identify. And so rather than totally change the topic into what you were discussing, we need to return back to the bare bones of those two decisions and the fact that the dissent constitutes an assortment of professional opinions that at the bottom line identify those in the majority as criminals. Now, you take that and you put it in one place and you use it as a step and you go beyond it. Beyond it, yeah, you file criminal complaints against the justices in those majorities. Now, back to the health care bill. There are 5 things about the health care bill I wanted to point out. When they first, October 14th of 2009, the health care bill left the Senate Finance Committee to the Senate floor for a general vote. The only Republican on the Senate Finance Committee that voted for the bill to be put to the floor for a vote was Olympia Snow. That was October 14th of 2009. October 17th of 2009, I had a criminal complaint filed with the FBI against the Senate Finance Committee 3 days after it was left committee for a vote on the Senate floor. So I was on top of it with all 4 feet from the day it left committee. So when I tell you that from a certain standpoint, I am an expert on the health care bill. There are things about it that I was able to discover and brief. Okay, it's a matter of law. If I'm mistaken, it requires a memorandum to prove it. That's how law is argued, opposing memorandums. Now, there are 5 things about the health care bill I want to outline to you. The first one is you can't buy an insurance contract outside the state. Well, point of order, if I may speak, I'm reading from Allgaier versus Louisiana, 1897. The date. What if I could strike down that provision that says you can't contract outside of your state for insurance? And I use a law or a Supreme Court case from 1897. The conclusion that you utter is they were able to do it because we forgot. We're asleep at the wheel regarding civic duty, or we would have known about this case. 1897. Gosh, it's been so long since those stupid Americans knew about this that we'll be able to get this over on them. You watch. I can do it. We'll trick them. Okay?
Hear, hear.
Those are the thoughts of a liberal, a Democrat that says we should take over a sixth of the economy with a health care bill. Now, in 1897, it reached the Supreme Court, the case of a Louisiana resident, Allgaier, who was prohibited by state law from forming a contract for insurance except that insurance offered inside the state of Louisiana. He bought a New York policy and was penalized under that state law and took it all the way to the Supreme Court. Here he was buying insurance outside the state in violation of a state law, and he won in the Supreme Court. Let's see. The Atlantic Mutual Insurance Company of New York has done no business of insurance within the state of Louisiana and has not subjected itself to any provisions of the statute in question. It had the right to enter into a contract in New York with citizens of Louisiana for the purposes of insuring the property of its citizens, even if that property were in the state of Louisiana. And correlatively, the citizens of Louisiana had the right, without the state, of entering into contract with an insurance company for the same purpose. Any act of the state legislature which should prevent the entering into such a contract or the mailing within the state of Louisiana of such a notification as is mentioned in this case is an improper and illegal interference with the conduct of the citizen, although residing in Louisiana in his right to contract and to carry out the terms of the contract validly entered into outside and beyond the jurisdiction of the state.
David, this is
How's
Charlie
that
in
for
Colorado.
hitting it right on the head and out of the park?
Yeah.
So,
David, this is Charlie again in Colorado. May I finish up? I apologize. I got overstepped a little bit, but just on that point that you just made, that's very interesting because you're talking about violations. Just what you're talking about, the interference of commerce, which is anti-Sherman, the Antitrust Sherman Act and the Clayton Act. I don't know if you're familiar with 15 U.S.C. 1. That in itself basically hits the nail on the head about the interference in commerce regarding contracts and trusts.
Okay, Charlie, there's going to be a million things about what they do. I'm trying to focus on the ones that stomp them into the ground instead of just add a rock to their pocket. I don't want them to die of 1,000 cuts. I want them to die of one clean swing of the axe across the back of the neck.
I apologize.
Sure.
I thought this one was good because basically we can prove they're a corporation. It's $100 million, $1 million for each officer.
Yeah, it's good, but you have hang on. It's good, but you have to prove a whole bunch just to get a little bit. And here's a Supreme Court case that knocks this issue out of the park. So there's a whole bunch of things about the law I could say in relation to a lot of different conclusions that I articulate, but the big remedy comes in the biggest arguments. So that having been said, and thank you, Charlie, of course. Back to this, we have an 1897 case about a state law that prohibited the purchase of insurance from outside the state, held to be unconstitutional because you have the right to contract in the 50 states for insurance no matter where you live. So much for that aspect of the health care bill. You can't restrict my purchase of health insurance to those offered, to those contracts strictly within my state. The second thing about the health care bill I would like to address comes from an understanding of Tax Code Section 83, which, as you'll see on the federal income tax page of wevgov.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page. It's about Section 83. You'll see quotes from a bunch of court cases that say, including tax court and the IRS Chief Counsel, that Section 83 explains what is gross income when you receive a paycheck. How much of your paycheck is gross income? 83A explains how to tax all compensation. The IRS doesn't train on it. The government will not go on record with its own interpretation of it, and yet it explains how to tax your paycheck. I've got a problem with that. And when you read the statute, you see that only the excess over the amount paid is gross income. How does Section 83 operate in your conclusion that I owe a tax on my entire paycheck? I think my amount paid is the value of my labor, and only the excess over that amount is gross income. They can't refute it. So, in the health care bill, there's a provision that says if you, as an individual, make over $200,000, or you two, as a couple, make over $400,000, you owe a 5% excise tax under the health care bill. Well, the statute reads, if one person makes over $200,000 or a couple makes over $400,000 in gross income, how does Section 83 operate in your conclusion I made gross income when all I received was the value of my labor? There's a 5% income tax on the wealthy that they can't collect if they allow Section 83 to operate. The next one. At the top of the federal income tax page of wevgov.com for free, you see, and this is also in the seminar called Key to the Code on the YouTube page, linked at the top of the menu column on wevgov. Click on YouTube too, and it'll take you to the Take from Caesar YouTube channel. Take the seminar called Key to the Code. It's the same argument that you see on the top of the federal income tax page of the website. The Social Security Act has never applied to citizens of the United States, which they say I am. And I say, okay, for argument purposes, I'll be a citizen of the United States. Look at this. Social Security's never applied to me. Next. And I prove it right there with several statutes that indicate, obviously, the Social Security Act has never applied to citizens of the United States. That's number one. Number two. It leaves only Chapter 1 of the tax code to deal with. And if you go to the statutory definition of citizen in Chapter 1, like you did to the Social Security chapters, you look, and you won't find a statutory definition of citizen. They wrote a regulation under Section 1 of the code, where we find the graduated income tax. They wrote a regulation saying who owes this tax? Citizens of the United States. Wherever they live? Yep. Wherever they live. And who is that? That's any person born or naturalized in the United States and subject to its jurisdiction. Well, nowhere in Section 1 of the code does it mention anyone's citizenship. What are you talking about in this regulation? You can't mention something in regulation that's not in the statute. This regulation is void. So they don't have a statute that implicates Americans or citizens of the United States as subject of Chapter 1 of the tax code. What I just drew your attention to was the Social Security Act as irrelevant regarding citizens of the United States, and Chapter 1 where citizens of the United States are implicated by regulation alone, which you can't do because the 16th Amendment says Congress can collect the tax. It has to be a statute. Now, I downloaded the entire health care bill in a PDF document, 2,500 pages, 2,400 and something. I copy and pasted it into a Microsoft Word document. And knowing this about the Social Security Act and the tax code and Chapter 1 of the tax code, I pressed Control-H. That brings up a little window that says, what do you want to search for and what do you want to replace it with in this Microsoft Word document? I want to do a search for the word gross. So everywhere it says gross income, I want it replaced with gross, 18-pick, bold and italics. So it's great, big, bold and italics. It'll stand out like a sore thumb everywhere they say gross income, because I got an argument against the use of that term in relation to my whole paycheck. And then I want to search for the word security, and I want to replace the word security with security, 18-pick, bold and italics. So everywhere it says Social Security, I can find it, because I got an argument against the Social Security Act. And then I want to do a search and replace for the word revenue. So everywhere it says Internal Revenue Code, it stands out in 18-pick, bold, and italics. And I replaced all those terms with great big letters, and then I went through the health care bill. Half of the health care bill is an amendment to the Social Security Act. Well, I can ignore that, can't I? Half of the health care bill. And 1/6 of the health care bill is an amendment of Chapter 1 of the Internal Revenue Code. I'm only named in a regulation. I can ignore that too. Look what I just did to the health care bill with my knowledge of statutory structure of the Internal Revenue Code in a treatise I completed in 1994. What I did was I sifted the context of the health care bill through my 1994 treatise and came up with this conclusion. In 1913, they got the 16th Amendment, income taxes. They got the Federal Reserve Act. We can print money out of thin air. And the 17th Amendment. Senators will no longer be appointed by state legislators. They will be voted upon by the general public that operates a drill press or a plow. We can snow them and lose states' rights in the 17th Amendment. Then, in 1933, U.S. bankruptcy. 1935, the New Deal. Teddy Roosevelt, the Social Security Act, which was old age survivors disability insurance and unemployment insurance. 1939 tax code. The 1939 tax code had Section 3811, collection of taxes in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Then in 1954, the Fed said, this is working really good. We're making a lot of money off of these stupid drill press operators and farmers. Let's rewrite the tax code and make it 10 times bigger and infinitely more complex. And they took Section 3811 of the 1939 tax code and they split it up into Chapters 2 and 21 of the 1954 tax code, which is Social Security Self-Employed, Chapter 2, and Social Security Employee, or FICA, Federal Insurance Contributions Act, Chapter 21. There's a statute that says so. Then in 1965, they added to the Social Security Act Medicare. And then in 2009, they added to the Social Security Act, which has never applied to Americans, the health care bill. It's never been the progressive income tax. It has always been the progressive racketeering scheme. And somewhere in the past, probably several times over history, a bunch of bankers got together and corporate raiders got together and said, let's steal 300 million gun owners blind to the point where their children are malnourished. And the rest of them said, I'm in. Let's do it. And that's what you have in our tax code. It's never applied to the 50 states until they wrote that regulation. Social Security has never applied to Americans. Section 211 of the original Social Security Act 1935 has that definition of citizen that expressly excludes citizens of the United States. And everywhere you go associated with Social Security, you find the same definition of citizen. It's only the possessions. And I'm basing everything I say on statute, which requires your memorandum in opposition if I'm wrong, and that would make you the greatest tax attorney in the world because even the government can't refute me. I've been up against their best for years. And I don't mean that spitefully. I mean, don't waste your time. This is the way it is. Now, look what I just did to the health care bill. I exposed it as a scheme that started in 1913 regarding our finances. Our government was taken over before that, but I'm not a student of that particular aspect of our national history. Now, if you kill the individual mandate, you kill the bill. So let's look at arguments against the individual mandate. Well, it's an addition to the Social Security Act. Okay, that's a good start. That doesn't apply to me. Ignore the Social Security Act. But let's keep it on. I like to kill something rather than wound it. Under the individual mandate, all the challenges that were made up to the Supreme Court in the first round were about states' rights. You can't come in here and boss us around. We're a state. And we got sovereignty. And it was argued by a bunch of state attorney generals that understand states' rights. And they don't understand individual rights. And that's when Justice Roberts said, it's a tax. It's not a penalty for failure to buy insurance. It's a tax. And we can do this under our taxing authority, Congress's taxing authority, Article 1, Section 8, I think. Oh, no, we missed, and everybody went home after the fight, and the government took the ball and did an end zone dance. We beat those drill press operators and farmers this time, didn't we? Well, with the individual mandate, they require you to go buy health insurance from the government? No. From a private entity. From a private corporation. There's nothing federal about it. There's nothing governmental about it, except the exchange through which you get insurance. But you get insurance from a private company. So, the compulsory purchase of health care insurance constitutes a mandate that you enjoy your Federal Reserve notes the way they tell you. You will buy insurance. It is a mandate, compulsory mandate that you form a contract with a private person. And it is the compulsion to associate with a private person. You have to contract with and associate with a private person. And you have to enjoy your property this way. You have to give it to these guys and buy what they sell. They're private persons. Newsflash, with every fundamental right comes a concomitant or adjoining right against compulsory exercise. Whose rights are they anyway? If the government can make you exercise your rights, well, suddenly the government can make me choose a religion. They can make me keep my affairs private. They can make me speak. They can make me shut up. Whose rights are they? Now, this is a subject that it's rare as hen's teeth to find this reference. You'll find most of the references against compulsory exercise to religion in cases brought by prisoners in the system against having to attend AA meetings where a religious philosophy was part of the curriculum. They said, we get credit for going to AA. We get time off of our sentence. But they teach religion in this, and that makes us choose between rights. You can't force us to endure religion to get a benefit. And so there's vague correlation between those cases and my claim that I can't be compelled to exercise rights. But you have Good versus University of Washington Associated Student Body, 1975, I think, where the Student Body Association said you have to give to the Student Body Association. You got fees to pay. And this student named Good said, well, you got political aspirations that I don't agree with. You're forcing me to support your political aspirations. And it went all the way to the Washington State Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, you can't force them to associate with you. They have rights against forced association. With every right comes a concomitant right against compulsory exercise. Then you have a Colorado State Supreme Court case in the interest of CSM, who was a minor. And I can't remember the details of that case, but it was about parents' rights to dictate, I think, who the child can and cannot associate with. And they said you can't force somebody to associate. And then there's a federal bankruptcy case called In Re McLuth Steel Corporation. And I think that was in the 1970s as well. And it said you have the right against forced association. Taking this and expanding to all rights, you can't force me to enjoy my property. You can't force me to form a contract. And you can't force me to associate. That's the exercise of three rights when I refuse to buy health insurance from a private person, an individual, a company, a limited liability company, a corporation, whatever. When I choose not to buy it, I'm exercising rights, and we already got the Supreme Court decision that says the penalty is a tax. You can't tax me for the exercise of rights. Murdoch versus Pennsylvania, I think like 1932, and since Murdoch versus Pennsylvania, there's 89 cases that cite Murdoch in the Supreme Court. Several of those are Jehovah's Witnesses cases, where municipalities would say, hey, you can't go door-to-door peddling your Watchtower publication because you haven't received a permit from the city, or because you haven't paid the license fee to do that, or it's a misdemeanor in this town to do that. And the Jehovah's Witness, bless them, took those municipalities to the Supreme Court on several occasions and kicked their butts. It's the right of free speech to go door to door, and you can't license it, you can't tax it, and you can't prohibit it. So here am I. I don't want to buy health insurance, and they're going to penalize me for not buying it, when in fact when I don't buy it, I'm exercising rights against compulsory exercise, and it's not constitutionally the occasion for a tax, which the Supreme Court already said the penalty constitutes. Next. So, in short, that's the health care bill. You kill the individual mandate, you kill the bill. But I like what I can do to the bill other than with the compulsory exercise argument. Half of it's the Social Security Act, which I'm going to ignore. I don't know what half that leaves, but it's not enough for me to bother with. And then a sixth of it, amendment to Chapter 1 of the Internal Revenue Code, I'm only mentioned in statute. I don't make over $200K, but if I did, I'd make the argument that it's not gross income. So how can you tag me with that 5% excise tax? And I can contract anywhere in the United States I want for insurance. That's my way of attacking the health care bill.
Well, you're just going to have to come back next week and talk to us some more about this.
Well, that's about all I have to say about it.
But
you know,
there's so many people.
David, you kind of caught us off guard by bringing that up, and that's very interesting. So I appreciate you do that. I kind of agree with that statement that was a surprise little topic, but made time.
Very good. What's the matter with it?
Chris, were you chiming in on something? Chris.
Hope she's not pregnant again.
Chris.
And so it's a topic that I rarely mention.
Somebody keeps unmuting us.
The news last week, and there are a bunch of tiddlywink arguments, and the Supreme Court has done it to us again with their authority over this health care bill by reading Federal Exchange into a sentence that said as an exchange established by a state, and they ruled, oh, that means federal government too. Well, no, it doesn't. I'm looking right at it. There's no mention of the federal government, and we don't care. We're the Supreme Court. And so they rescued that bill again. There's no rescue from what I can do to the health care bill.
Well,
and if I were to get funding, I will step up as the lead plaintiff, and it'll be David Myrland versus Burwell all over again, and we'll take it all the way to the Supreme Court and ask, can the government compel you to exercise your rights? And when you exercise the right against compulsory exercise, can they tax you? Right both times. Dead bill.
Well, listen, I just spoke to David. I want to thank you for this. I just spoke with Randy, and she's been on the road for the better part of 2 days, and she's very tired and is winding us down. And I think it's about that time we do wind it down. However, I do want to have you back, and I know Randy does, to kind of go into a little more depth on this. Cause
I can barely hear you.
I'm sorry, this was a bonus to have you kind of go into this little topic, so that's great. Can Randy contact you and schedule you back in, if not next week, then the week after?
Are the Kennedys gun shy?
Okay. There you go.
Now, of course, I'd love to come back, and I just wanted to remind everybody before we wrap it up that if you go to wevgov.com, in that menu column on the left, buy for $2.50 that document on the traditional marriage link, and tell everybody you know to go and buy that document, because it is the way to curb what is likely to happen to those who want to preserve their religious beliefs and preserve their conscience against this tide that the Supreme Court has unleashed.
Well, I appreciate that. I know I'll be doing that here tonight, or certainly first thing in the morning. But so with that, I'm gonna say good night to everybody, and thanks for the participation, especially you, David. Thanks for being our featured guest tonight, and we'll look forward to having you back maybe next week,
sure.
Certainly the week after that as well. So.
And if you could send me a link that will allow me to download the recording of this show, I'd sure appreciate it.
We'll do. We'll have Randy do that. So with that, I'll say good night, everybody. Thanks again for your participation, and we'll see you back here all next week. Thanks again.
Thanks, Randy. Bye now.
Thanks, Randy. Thanks.